the one, the only, Ben Sion.
Good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Just Daf It. Tonight we're doing It Gittin, Daf It number 18, Chai. Special Daf today. We'll talk about today a continuation of the discussion about writing a get during the day and signing it at night. We'll get into a discussion about Shemitah. Shemitah, again, is mishamed a loan, right? If you have a loan against somebody and Shemitah comes, you don't have to pay that loan anymore. We'll talk about that. And we'll also get into, on Amud Beis, a discussion about shlichus. If you tell, and an interesting case of shlichus, where you tell 10 people, write a get for my wife. You want 10 people to all be the Eidim? Really, this is to embarrass the woman. There should be 10 people. A public quorum should know that you're divorcing your wife. We'll talk about in Iyud Ben Sion about shlichus, the type of shlichus by get. Right, get is famous for shlichus. You can send someone emissary. That's the whole point of the first and second paragraph. We're talking about where you send the get, Medina Sayyam, you're sending the get with somebody else. You're not personally giving the get to your wife. You're appointing an agent to give it to your wife. Right? He has to say, if he comes from Medina Sayyam, he has to say and then give it to her in front of Eidim Masira. We'll get into the machlokas in religion or Rameir, whether Eidim Masira Karsi, what are the important Eidim, the ones who witness the handing over of the get, or is the ones that sign the get. We'll talk about that. A lot to discuss in Iyud Ben Sion. Let's get into it. On Yud Zayin Amud Beis on the bottom, we left off the last words, last line. I'm only Ravina l'Rabba. Ravina said to Rabba, "Kosve va'osve b'kiste, dima faisa tifayis mai." Let's say he wrote a get. He wasn't sure he wants to divorce his wife, and he wants to try to make it up, to mollify his wife, to appease his wife that she shouldn't want a divorce, or that he should want a divorce. He has thoughts about doing it. He writes a get. Maya, right? What's the case? Like, basically, we said in the Mishnah, Daf It Gittin, they're abundant necessitated to write the time in the get, right? To preclude, according to Rabbi Yochanan, one thing, according to Reish Lakish, another thing. So this could happen quite often. So this would ruin the day of the Zman, right? Because he writes the get one day. He writes that when you write the get, you write the Zman, and then he's going to give it 10 days later. So what do they help with their takana? Amar lei, so he's back to It's not common for people to do this. People are not going to write a get. It's a punishment to give a get. It's not fun to get divorced. It's messy. It's expensive. It has repercussions for your entire life. Emotionally, your children, if you have children, it's a terrible thing to get divorced. Like Gemara is going to say at the end of It Gittin. So people are not going to do this unless they're absolutely sure they're going to have a get. They're not going to write a get just in case they need to use it. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Ravina asked Ravashi another question. Gittin abam dinas hayam the michtiv benisa v'lomatu ad tishrei. Right? Sometimes, right, the whole circumstance of our masechta is where you write a get from dinas hayam, and you go ahead and you send it to Eretz Yisrael, right? It could take a long time. You could write it in Nisan, and then it's not going to get there till Tishrei when the shliach gives it to the wife, right? What did you help? So again, writing this man again is not going to help the problems of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Amar lei hanu kali islo. He says these gittin people hear about an agent traveling from Medina Sayyam to Eretz Yisrael giving a get, so they'll know and they'll look into it and they'll see the date that was actually written in the get, and therefore it won't cause a problem. It's marm. Now this is a discussion relevant to Mesachas Yevamos and Mesachas Ksubos. The Gemara says in Mesachas Yevamos and Ksubos that when you divorce a woman or the husband dies, she has to wait 3 months to get remarried. The Gemara Mesachas Yevamos explains the reason she has to wait 3 months is because she could become impregnated. She could have become impregnated by her previous husband. And let's say she has a baby right after she marries the second person, say after 7 months. You don't know if the child was from the first husband or from the second husband. It's going to cause problems. You have to say wait 3 months, so therefore you'll know that if the 7-month baby is from the second one. However, when do you count? When write a get? Is it when she gets the get or when the get is written? When do you start counting the 3 months? Rav Amar Mishas, Rav says when she gets the get. V'Shmuel Amar Mishas, Shmuel says once he writes the get, even though he didn't give it to her yet, they're probably not going to be together anymore. You can count 3 months from then. Maski flower of Nazam Rashai Shmuel. Yom Rushtei Nashim Mechatzar Achaz Asur Zumuteres. How could it be? right? Not everyone who writes a get gives it right away. So according to Shmuel, um, people are not gonna look into it. People always know when the get was given. They know when the formality was given. They don't look into it. It's gonna come out that two women. Let's say you're married to two women. You lived in one residence. I guess each one had their own wing in their house. Um, but this woman is Asar and this is Mutaras, right? Depending on the ksiva, he gave it to them at the same time, but he wrote one before the other. Why should one be Mutar and one Asar? Amar Abaye. Like we said before, they're going to check into it. They're going to look into the written document and see if they have questions about it. They're going to say, "Oh, the reason she got married is because let's look at her get. Her get was written 3 months ago, so therefore it's okay." Tanya Kavasi the Rav, Tanya Kavasi the Shmuel. We have a brisa that follows like Rav's opinion, a brisa which seems to occur with Shmuel. Tanya Kavasi the Rav, Ashaleach get liishto. He sends his get to his wife. And his wife, the shliach takes 3 months to get there. Once she gets the get, it's given over into her hand. She has to wait from then 3 months. Get yashin is a subject that Gemara is going to discuss much later on in the Masechta. Basically, get yashin is where you give a get to your wife, and then after. You write a get to your wife, and then before you give it to her, you seclude yourself with your wife. So therefore, there's a lot of problems associated with that because we're worried that people are not going to realize that you're not divorced. I think you're divorced already, and then you're having illegitimate relations with her. So therefore, a get yashan, if you write a get and you seclude yourself with your wife, the get is puzzle. Here, we're not worried about get yashan. Why not? Because he sent it on a journey. She's not with him. She's in a different country. So therefore, we're not worried about get yashan, so it's okay. Tanya goes to Shmuel. Bryce accords with Shmuel. Amashlish get leishto. He gives over a get to a third person. The Amr lo altitneula. Don't. He says to the person, don't give it to her. Ela achar gimel chadashim. Wait 3 months and then give it to her. Mishnaslam muteres linase miyad. Once they give it to her, she's allowed to marry right away. The get yashan ein choshishin. Sherilin osyache ima. And we're not worried about get yashan because, like we said before, he didn't seclude himself with her. So here also, according to Shmuel, right? Shmuel says it's from Shas Nesina, and the first brisa, one second over here. Okay, I don't know why I didn't realize that. Just to be clear over here, the reason the second brisa is like Shmuel says you go with the Shas Ksiva, the writing over here. It says, he said to give it to her after 3 months. That she can get remarried right away once he gets it, because 3 months have elapsed from the Ksiva, from the writing. Rav Kana, Rav Papi, Rav Ashi, Avdi Mishas Ksiva. Rav Kana, Rav Papi, and Rav Ashi all held like Shmuel. You go after the time of the writing. Once they wrote the get, even though he didn't give it to her, you wait 3 months after the writing. Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Breda, Rav Yeshua, Avdi Mishas Nasim. They pass in like Rav that you do after you count 3 months after giving it. V'helchasa Mishas Ksiva Lachafal is Shmuel 3 months after the writing of the get. Itmar Emasai Ksuva. Another question about Gittin. Mishametes. It's actually about a ksuva, not exactly about a get. Ksuva mishametes. Now, ksuva, you owe the woman money, 200 zuz if she's a psula, 100 zuz if she's an almana. She has the time to collect this ksuva. She only gets the ksuva, obviously, if the husband dies or he divorces her. So, a ksuva is not considered a loan until you start getting paid back part of it, or you specify that it's a loan. So Rav Amar Mishatifko Matiska. We do two things. First of all, you have to get paid back part of it. Let's say she was owed 200, she got 100 back. And then she specifically says, I want the rest to be a loan. She makes it explicit. I'm writing a document, the rest, the balance of the ksuva is a loan. The Shmuel Amar Pogma Alfi Shal Zakva Shal Zakva Zakva Alfa Pi Shal Pogma. He says either or. Either she didn't get paid back anything, but she writes a specific star that she wants to get paid back like a loan. Or even if she got paid back part of it and she didn't specifically write a new document that he owes me star halva, he owes me money, nonetheless it's considered a loan, and therefore Shemitah would wipe it out, right? Because every loan, Shemitah wipes out loan document, a loan. If I owe someone money and Shemitah comes, I don't owe him the money anymore. Unless you do something, right, like a prusbul, right? That's a way of getting around it. A lot of people rely on prusbul. But if you didn't do a prusbul, so according to Shmuel, either way, if you do any one of these things, the ksuva loan gets wiped out. According to Rav, it has to be two things. Tanya goes to the Rav, Tanya goes to the Shmuel. We have a brayso like Rav, a brayso like Shmuel. Tanya goes to the Rav. Amos like ksuva mishametes. When does the ksuva get wiped out? Mishatifko mitiska. Once again, she has to get paid back part of it, and the rest she specifies she wants as a loan, and then Shemitah comes and wipes that out. She has to do both. One or the other is not good enough. Tanya goes to the Shmuel. Ones v'knasu pito yiktuvas isha shezakvan milve mishamten v'mlav ein mishamten. Ones, if a woman gets forced, she gets raped, or pitoi, she gets seduced. The man owes her a payment of 50 slime. Knas is really another way for moti shemra. He defames a woman, his wife, he says that she committed adultery between Erisin and Nisuin, the engagement and the marriage. Okay, he's chayav to pay 100 zuzim, and a ksuva, right? A ksuva is 200 or 100 that he owes her. Shezakvan a milva. The Raisa says he made it as a milva. He didn't say that even if she didn't get paid part of it back. Mishamtin. These things also all get canceled. All these chiyuvim, these monetary payments, get canceled by shvius. V'imlav ein mishamtin. I'm sorry, they only get canceled if you specifically made them into a loan. But you see, by even just the ksuva, as long as you do one step, you make it into a loan, even though you didn't get paid part of it back, nonetheless, Shemitah wipes it out. When do these things, at least the first three things, mostly shemer, onus, and pitot, when do they become a milveh? Do you have to make it a milveh? The answer is you don't have to make it a milveh. Once you go into Beis Din, and Beis Din says you're chayiv to pay these amounts of money, it becomes like a milveh. And if Shemitah comes, it wipes out those chovos. Amar Shmuel, ksuva k'maisa Beis Din damya. Shmuel says a statement, ksuva is like a maisa Beis Din, action of court. Ma maisa Beis Din nichtavin b'yom and nichtavin b'layla. Any action of the court. You come into a court and they decide something and they write out a way of, they tell you what to do. So any instruction of a Beis Din, it could be written by Yom, normally we're not worried about, only by Gittin, like we saw in the Mishnah, we're worried about that if you write it during the day and you sign it at night for various reasons, like Rabbi Yochanan or Rish Lakish says, but regular documents of money, we're not so worried about this. So a ksuva is not like a get. A ksuva is like any other monetary arrangement. So if it's written during the day and signed at night, even though it's the next day, it's okay. It actually happened an incident. The ksuva Reb Chia bar Rav, the son of Rav, was written during the day and signed at night. Hava Rav Hasam, Rav was there. He didn't say anything, they didn't protest. Lema k'Shmuel. They say that Rav held like Shmuel, they agree with the Shmuel. So the Gemara answers, maybe he didn't hold like Shmuel. Asukin ba'oso inyan havu. There, it was a unique case where they started writing the ksuva, and they kept on talking about the different stipulations in the ksuva until the night came. They were always engaged in discussion. Desanya Amar Lezer Bar Tzadok Lo Shem Al Shein Asukin ba'oso inyan. Aval Asukin ba'oso inyan kasher. This apparently has ramifications for our Mishnah also, that even by a get, it's only possible that Rabbanan will say it's possible if you wrote it during the day, then you stopped talking about it, and then you signed it at night. But if you were dealing with all the stipulations of the get the entire day, and then it dragged on into the night, everyone agrees that would be kosher. So it's lav dafka that Rav agrees with Shmuel. Reb Shimon Machshir Reb Shimon argued in our Mishnah. He says that the get was written during the day and signed at night is kosher. Amar Rava, my time with the Reb Shimon. What's the reason Reb Shimon? He says kosher. Kasavar kema shenasan eina b'garsha shuv ein lo peros. So I mentioned the main reason. Even Rabbi Yochanan agrees. Reb Shimon follows the opinion of Reish Lakish that the reason for zman is because of peros. And Reb Shimon holds once he decides megarisher, even before he writes the get, he loses his chus to the peros anymore. So therefore, who cares if you wrote it during the day, wrote it during and signed it at night? It always, even before the writing, you already lost the right to the peros. Reish Lakish makes a statement. Reb Shimon, who says again that a get was written during the day and signed at night, is kosher only if it was signed exactly that night and right away after Shkia. But if it was written one day and then 9 days later you signed it, that's not good. Low. Why? Top of Yerushalayim base. Chayshin and Shema Pies. We're worried that in those 10 days he reconciled with his wife, and even though they signed the get later on, really maybe he invalidated the get in between, or it was a get yashan. Some opinions say he secluded with her, and therefore we're worried that there's a possible get. We don't say that get is kosher. Rabbi Yochanan argues. He says afilu, according to Rabbi Shimon, afilu mikam arasar yamim. We're not worried about it. He said the pious kala islay lemilsa. If you really he reconciled and he secluded with her, and there was a problem with get yashan, you would have heard about it. In fact, you didn't hear about it. Shows not a problem. So it's Machal Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan in the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, right? That he says you don't have to write it, you don't have to sign it the day you have to write it. You have until 10 days. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you do. According to Reish Lakish, not. Itmar Amar La Sara, a new discussion. Kol guess who get ishti. Write a get for my wife. He told 10 people. 10 people together, write a get for my wife. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shnai Mishum Eidim. What he meant to say is that 2 people should be the Eidim on the get. You only need 2 Eidim on the get. The kula mishum tanaya. The rest of them, the other 8 people, are also important in terms of the get, but they're like a stipulation. He obviously did this to embarrass his wife. That 10 people should know that he's megarish his wife. He didn't mean that all 10 should be the Eidim. You don't need 10 people to be the Eidim. He just stipulated. Part of his stipulation was that 8 of them should also sign on it, but they're not. They don't have to actually be Eidim. Reish Lakish Amar Kulam Mishum Eidim. He says you need 10 Eidim. If he instructed 10 people to write a get for his wife, he meant all of them should be Eidim. Heichidami. Once again, he didn't say all of you. He just said to 10 people randomly. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. No, that's not the case, right? Why? If you just tell 10 random people, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, you just tell them, write a get for my wife and give it to her. So one person writes the get. And he mean for 2 people, the minimum is 2 people to sign it. Maybe you want to embarrass that 10 people should know about her, but technically his basic instructions were just one person to write the get and 2 other people to sign it. The other 7 people are not important. Elad must be the Amar Lo Kulcham. He said, all of you. He had 10 people saying, all of you write a get for my wife. Elad Amar Lo Kulcham. My beinayu. What's the difference between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish? Beinayu. The chasam beitrei mine biyome ve'inach mikan ve'arasar yom. 2 people, so he instructed all of them to write a get for his wife. 2 people signed that day. 2 people wrote the get and signed that day, and the rest signed at a later day, up until 10 days. Ma'adamar mishum t'nai. According to the one who says that it's a time, Rabbi Yochanan, kosher, because it's not integral. The other 8 Eidim are not signing off on the get. They're not making the get. The get was made after 2 Eidim. They're just. He wants 10 people's names to be on the get, so it's a stipulation. If it's fulfilled within the next 10 days, it's okay. Umad Amar Mishum Eidim Pasal Kon Reish Lakish really Pasal because he needs all to be Eidim, and the Eidim, like according to the Rabbanan in the Mishnah, all the Eidim have to sign on the day it was written. Inami, a different nafkamina. Could go and Shnimsa Echad Mehem Karogo Pasal. Let's say out of the 10 Eidim, one of them was a relative, or he was someone who was Pasal for Eidos, he was a Gazlan or something like that. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it says it's a stipulation, kosher, because you have 9 Eidim. If one is an invalid Eid, so therefore he didn't include him. And 2 kosher Eidim sign it, and the other 7 people that are kosher sign it. Another one is not included. It's just a stipulation. However, if according to Reish Lakish said they're all Eidim, right? There's a concept that Gemara says in Maseches Makos that if you have a group, a kad of Eidim, even if it's more than 2 Eidim, 3 Eidim, 4 Eidim, Nimsa Echem and Karov Apostle, I do some Betela. Since they're all one Edus together, if one of them is Apostle, so the whole Edus basically loses its credibility. Lamad Amar Mishum Tanai Kasha. Lamad Amar Mishum Edom Apostle. According to Reish Lakish, is going to be Apostle. Ichasim Betchila Karov Apostle. According to Rabbi Yochanan, right? Let's say the first person, right? He says if one of them is Karov Apostle, it's okay. But what if the first person, one of the first two people who signed it, is the Karov Apostle? What would he say in that case? Amri la kasher. Some say Rabbi Yochanan would say it's kasher. Some say it's apostle. Amri la kasher. The opinion that says it's kasher, tnaihu. It's just a stipulation, right? So if the first day is not kasher, so the next two people that sign are the real Edom. Amri la apostle. The one who says it's apostle is only the Rabbanan. Obviously, it's okay right. So the Rabbanan is apostle because people assume the first two signatures are the real signatures, and then they'll see, oh, Karov apostle are okay to be an aid, when in fact it's not true. Other shtaros you need, where there's only two Eidim, one who's Karov Apostle invalidates the whole shtar. Huda Amr Lehula Asara, a man said to 10 people, Kisvu Get Ishti, write a get for my wife. Chasam Beit Shrei Minaya B'Yomi. What happened was two of them signed during that day that it was written. Ve'inach Mikan V'Asar Yamim. The rest signed within the next 10 days. Asak Meir Yeshua ben Levi. The person came in front of Yeshua ben Levi. Amr Lei, is it a good get? So he answered at the top of Yotam and Aleph, Kedaihu Reb Shimon L'smoch Alav B'Shas Adchach. The Gemara says very often, even though we don't paskin normally like Reb Shimon, this is the only get we have, and Reb Shimon allows a get to be written during the day and signed at night. So the Gemara asks, Amar Reish Lakish L'Hichsh Reb Shimon El La'alter. Even Reb Shimon who says it doesn't have to be signed in the same day, that's only if it was right at night, the following night after that day it was signed. In this case, people signed up until 10 days later. How could you be machshir it? So the Gemara says, "Lo ba'hi Rabbi Yochanan's spherulay." In regards to that, he holds like Rabbi Yochanan's opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yochanan held that Rabbi Shimon would agree that even if they sign until 10 days later, it's okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, Shnayim Mishum Eidem, Ekul Mishum Tanai. Why do you have to come on to Rabbi Shimon to say Kedayu Rabbi Shimon L'Smoch L'Shas? According to Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, the Rabbanan, right, that in this case of 10 people, since 2 people actually sign on the right day, it's kosher according to the Rabbanan. Why do you have to mention Rabbi Shimon? So the Gemara answer is Bahik Reish Lakish spherulay. In terms of the machlokesh, Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, about when you say the 10 people, Kisvu Gel each day, he happens to pass like Reish Lakish, that they're all Mishum Eidem. And therefore the only reason he can machshir the get is because of Rabbi Shimon. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, he holds like Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, Rabbi Shimon. With that, we'll conclude today's shir. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where I'm going to talk more in depth this machlokesh Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. It seems that the post can pass like Rabbi Yochanan over here, even though it seems that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi paskin like Reish Lakish. We'll try to figure that out. Ian with Ben Sion coming up next.